So that word experience is kind of a key word, because there's always some experience unfolding all the time. Sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, a lot of times somewhere in the middle. So there's generally some kind of experience happening. And the nature of experience is that it's sort of either alluring, it pulls you in, or repelling. It makes you want to run away, right? So a nice experience is alluring, right? It's seductive, right? Really nice experiences are really seductive, right? And experiences that are painful and harsh are just the opposite. We tend to be repelled by them. But either way, it sort of traps us into the world of experience. And the world of experience, I like experience as much as the next guy. But to be completely trapped in the world of experience is a topsy-turvy place to live, right? Because experience is very unpredictable. You can't predict what experience you're going to have 1 second from now. You never know, right? Experiences come to you without asking your permission, and they depart without saying goodbye, right? They're topsy-turvy, right? They occur whether you want them or not to. So that's the nature of experience. So experience obviously is not what always is. It's not what is always and already the case. Experiences are sort of the spice of life, you know? Sometimes the spice is good and sometimes it's not so good, but it's the spice of life. But it's not what's always and already the case. So when we start to look into our own experience of being, because that's what spirituality is, when you get it out of the conceptual realm of spiritual fantasy and theology, it's a deep exploration of the direct experience of being. That's what it is. It's not an attempt to escape the direct experience of being, which is often what's happening. And it, especially if it's not pleasant or even if it's boring, we try to escape the direct experience of being. So when you do something, say, like when we meditate, you are being undistracted from the direct experience of being, right? You're not doing something else to distract yourself or to change your experience necessarily. You may still be distracting yourself. You may be fantasizing about being in Tahiti in an attempt to change your experience or whatever, But all the externals are kind of taken away when we're meditating, and we're kind of stuck with ourselves. You should probably call it, instead of meditation, maybe someday I'll rename it, We'll do 40 minutes of being stuck with yourself. And when you do first start doing something like meditation, it's sort of disquieting at a certain point, because you see that so much of what happens in human experience is not occurring with your permission, that it just occurs, right? Your thinking doesn't say, hey, do you want to think right now? Okay, let's think. Or do you want to stop? Okay, we'll turn. It doesn't do that. It just happens or it doesn't happen. You can be sitting there doing nothing, and all of a sudden some little strange door in your unconscious opens, and all of a sudden you feel some weird anxiety, and you have no idea why you feel it or where it came from, and it didn't ask you if it could show up, and it often doesn't even tell you what it's about. That just, there it is, right? Or it could be something else. It could be all of a sudden you're kind of sitting there in a state of confusion, and then 3 breaths later, you're just in this wonderful state of bliss. of enjoyment. And you don't know how that came, right? Of course, when you have that kind of change, your mind starts to wonder, like, how did that occur? Because I want to be able to repeat that, right? I like that. I want to be able to repeat that. Kind of like a drug addict, you know? I like that. I want to repeat it. How much does it cost? So but one of the beauties of doing something like meditation is, at some point you just start to realize, like, okay, it's just the world of experience, just experience. It just comes and it comes and it goes and it goes and it comes and it goes, and it's unpredictable, and I can't dictate it, and it doesn't ask for my permission. And geez, even trying to sustain and maintain the really great meditative experiences actually has a tinge of sorrow to it. Because I'll get up from my meditation, I'll go about my day, someone will insult me, and I won't feel bliss anymore. And then I'll wonder, how do I feel that again? How do I get back there, dear teacher? How do I take those cool and groovy experiences of meditation when they show up into my daily life, right? And then there's lots of books that get written about that. Here's how to do it. They should all have a disclaimer, and you will fail, you know. And the reason they fail is because, again, it's very easy for any of us to kind of lose our orientation, isn't it? Like, you can understand something clearly, and then sometimes 5 minutes later, you're just disoriented, and it's all confusing, and you don't know which way's up and which way's down and which way to go and what to do and, you know, what happened. And so it's kind of its own evolution to begin to leave the world of experience, just leave it alone. Which does not mean to push it away or try not to have it or deny whatever it's just to just leave it alone. Again, those of you who've been with my teaching for a while know the way I put this in meditation is simply allow everything to be as it is. It's one of those sneaky teachings. You know what I mean? It's like the simplest, seems like the most simplest, harmless thing. You know what I mean? But it's like if somebody snuck an atomic bomb in the form of something like a marble or something. You know, it's much more powerful than it looks. It's much more difficult than it appears too. But as we begin to allow any moment of experience just to be what it is, and we see that experience changes, and you watch it change. And when you watch it change, there's this intuition that starts to come to you, this sort of subtle sense of, there seems to be something that sustains itself through all this changing of experience. There seems to be some quality of being, you could say, that seems to always be, but it's confusing because what always isn't an experience, right? The experiences are in the world of change, and thank God they do change, right? But that intuition that there's something underneath all this world of experience, right? The way we usually conceptualize this to ourselves is something very simple and common, you know? It's just like, they all happen to me. And when we say something like that, they all happen to me. All these experiences are happening to me. Of course, that doesn't tell us anything about the me, but it is a kind of way of giving articulation to a kind of intuition that something seems to always be here. Something seems to always be here. But what it is doesn't seem to be any kind of experience. It doesn't, fortunately, it's not the terrible experiences that's always here. And it's not the great ones either. Right? And beginning to really hone in on that intuition is really, really important and useful. Because when you do that, it literally can cut decades, if you believe in lifetimes, maybe lifetimes off the whole search. Because it starts to sober you up from the endless chase for more and different and better experiences. And you start to go, what is that thing? What is that seems to always be here? What is that? There's something that I just intuitively feel is always here. We do it every time you think about your past, right? And there's something that seems to be there and here at the same time, right? Everything's changed. Your past isn't occurring in the present moment. But there was some common denominator between your past and your present. We call that common denominator me or I, right? I was 6, I was 7, this happened to me, this happened 6 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old, and it's all happening to me. It's all about I, okay. But that itself is giving a kind of articulation of an underlying sort of intuition that whatever this I or me is seems to be sustained through all the changing of experience, because they all seem to happen to me, whatever that is, and that seems to sustain itself through all the changing of experiences, right? Okay, so when you start to see that, now you're starting to sober up a little bit more. Because now you're starting to, when you really see this, of course, many of you have seen this a long time ago, but when you really see this, not simply because I describe it, because you really start to see it in your own experience, because it is right there in your own experience, and you don't even have to look very deep. This isn't like difficult stuff. You just have to take a good look at the nature of your experience. And the nature of all experience is all the same. It's universal. Not that our experiences are universal, but the fact of how it all operates is very universal. So when you start to see this, you get onto something. You're kind of like, it's like a dog catching the scent. It's like, something's here. Something other than just the passing realm of experience and the endless trying to grasp and sustain and push away experiences. There's something that seems to sustain itself. And I'm not saying that something actually does sustain itself. I'm just giving a kind of description. There seems to be something there. When you really get that, it is kind of like a dog getting its, like, all right, I'm onto something. This isn't the same old endless rat race of looking for an experience that will only disappear on me like all of them do. This feels intuitively like this is something different. Right? You're starting to engage in a more primary, basic, fundamental relationship with your own experience of being.